a Thursday. I look forward to our conversation every Thursday, as mentioned, with behavioral change specialist Johanse Iodike. He's on the Zoom line, of course, in office early this morning. Welcome.
Thanks, Jason. What's going on?
I good, you know,
Welcome
Johanse.
to everyone viewing.
I good, man. Last night was not so well for me. I was telling the audience earlier, I had a most brutal nightmare, very vivid. I was, deep sleep, and I was awakened by this image of somebody coming to shoot me by. And I don't be involved in, me, I mind my business. I go about under the umbrella of love and respect. And I don't know if it's because I don't know if crime is in my subconscious. I talk about it every morning. I know where I come from. And I don't normally get nightmares. I got up sweating, and I wanted to kind of ask you what, can someone, take anything, is any takeaway from a nightmare, or that's just something just random thoughts in your mind that manifests itself while you're sleeping?
Well, there's two schools of thought, right? One is that, it's influenced, if we go from a spiritual standpoint, that, it's influenced in some way by spirituality or a higher being. And then there's also the standpoint that your mind just clearing out subconscious thoughts, etc. And most times I would say for people to observe their dreams and see what is the result of it. So let's say you have an interpretation of it. Someone coming to shoot you, maybe someone don't like you, someone have bad mind against you, etc. Write it down, see if you can get a vivid description of the person within uniform. Was it a gangster, a bandit, etc.? All of those things can inform to some sort of meaning of the dream.
Yeah, because some people take their dreams very serious, and I guess nightmares, they do just that. It's one of those things that creates a kind of trauma, and then you get up and you try to move on. I want to take it now to today's topic in terms of ways to prevent getting chained up. Now, we know in Trinidad terms, our dialect, to chain up someone is to really more or less make them enter into a space or enter into an activity that might not necessarily be the spirit, the energy. You have the ability to rile up people, to get them going, to chain them up. That's what we do. People take chain up all the time in this country. How does one, know when it's happening and know how to pull back and not get themselves in that web?
Well, let's start with a definition of chain up. Chain up, let's say it could be to influence or manipulate someone in a negative manner, or to be influenced or manipulated in a negative manner. So you could do the chaining up, or you could be chained up, right? And I like the term chains because chain to me gives the connotation of a slave. So you're not even in control of yourself. Someone is controlling you or influencing you in some way, or you are controlling or influencing someone in some way. And understanding that is important because what enables us to be chained up is our own triggers. There are things that we may be insecure about, things that may get us angry, things that may stir some sort of deep emotional response, and sometimes even unaware to us. But other people may be aware of it and can be able to pinpoint it and know exactly what to say or do to get that response out of us.
Yeah, because you see embarrassment too, especially with young people. I go back to school days where a man might push somebody. I went to all boys school there, Belmont, grade school, Belmont Secondary, and sometimes I remember situations would escalate so easy because I chain up. A man will push a man, and a man, ooh, you taking that, boy? A man mash your clocks there, and and those simple triggers, big fight break out, because again, it's an embarrassing situation, and the simple, ooh, good, you see that, good? That where you taking that? And then somebody now, they might not be inclined to, but they almost feel obligated to activate and to respond.
That feeling of embarrassment right? You don't have to feel embarrassed. That is you choosing to feel embarrassed. So there's something about the situation that's a trigger for you. And whether it is a schoolyard, a workplace, or even in an intimate or platonic relationship, knowing what is your trigger, because knowing yourself is important. And if you have low self-esteem, if you're insecure about maybe your body or your skill set or even your academic levels, if you're insecure about something, then people could play on it. Now, nothing is wrong with feeling insecure at a certain time. Nothing is wrong with even having low self-esteem at times, because we vacillate between high and low self-esteem in many instances. But if you not aware of it, then someone could play on it. So really understanding yourself, understanding, you know what, I don't like embarrassment, you know. So when this happen, I would know what to do. I could prepare myself so I won't be chained up, I won't be controlled by someone.
It's interesting you said embarrassment is a choice, because I'm thinking embarrassment is almost like a natural reaction. There are moments where you really feel embarrassed, you know, you have not been your best, or there's been some kind of a public spill, you know, and you tend to, you know, you feel a certain way. There's a particular reaction you feel. I don't know if it's something chemical. I don't know if you could break it down for us even more on a scientific level, but there's a particular emotion you feel of embarrassment in a moment. And I'm thinking, if someone is not there to comfort you in that moment, someone is there to point out your flaw or to further fan the flame on that embarrassing moment, it can now initiate a kind of reaction then, a pushback almost, to say, well, you know, I'm not going through that. Because embarrassment, you see, especially with social media, Johan saying this timing, with certain posts and comments and what people might put in a comment section, or what somebody might even suggest in that virtual space, we see those things escalate, you know. That fear, a lot of people have a dread fear of embarrassment, and that in itself, as you rightfully said, if somebody knows that, they could really chain you up.
Mm-hmm. Right? Embarrassment or most emotional responses can be learned behavior, because if as a child, every time you spill something, you got a certain reaction from the adults around you, then that feeling of embarrassment could be trained into you, versus if it was the reaction was more a loving environment. So then when you're an adult, let's say you spill something on your clothes, you wouldn't think, oh my gosh, this is the worst thing that could happen, versus, okay, I made a mistake, now what's the solution? So whether it is embarrassment, anger, hurt, guilt, etc., a lot of these emotions are bred into us as we grow up.
What about the person who is doing the chaining up? The person who is able to use their words, use their emotional and conversational intelligence to activate people to do things that might not be necessarily their natural position or their natural response. That person with that ability, can one have a particular sense of consciousness, a discipline within themselves to know, okay, let me just hold my tongue. Let me just hold back and let me escalate the situation. How do we talk to the chain-up artists?
Well, it depends. Some people have negativity. They specifically have nefarious ideas and they want a certain result, so they figure out exactly how to get that person or persons to do it. Other people, sometimes, especially coming from love, because let's go in a romantic relationship. Both parties know, well, should know, you know, each other's insecurities, what each person's triggers are, and you have the ability to activate it or treat it with love. So if you're coming from a point of view of love or respect for that person, even though you may have the power in your hand, right? And you know the saying, with great power comes great responsibility. So if you know that person well enough, you could trigger them. But on the other hand, there are people who have malicious intent. And then there's the third possibility, that all of us want to survive, all of us seeking to survive. And we figure out in our environment how to survive. And sometimes that survival is malicious or chain up. So let's go with a baby. I'm not saying a baby is a chain up artist, but a baby knows if they do certain things, they'll get a certain reaction from their parents and they can accomplish certain goals, where it is food, milk, etc.
Yeah, very important because you see, we find ourselves in a time where the ability to activate someone, the ability to almost curse and to encourage someone, it's easy. You know, there are those who possess that particular skill, and there are those too who challenge you, who literally test you, to take you to the edge, and they almost dare you. Well, what are you going to do? Do something now?
Right.
And
Right.
you almost, for those who are not strong enough, you find yourself, you know, sometimes making a particular decision that could really derail the entire life or derail your good name. How do we prevent ourselves from crossing that line, especially in a relationship? Sometimes you're walking away from a scenario and somebody might say, well, what are you going to do? Lash me now? How does one walk away from that kind of scenario?
One is to know yourself, know your own triggers. I'm going back to that. Once you know yourself, even if someone tries to trigger you, because you're aware of it, they say knowledge is power. So if you're aware of it, you can have more control of it. Also, you'll know when you're betraying yourself. There are certain things you just don't want to do. It's not part of your nature, but somebody egging you on, willing you to do it, daring you to do it, and you feel it going against your own nature, it's not to do it. And then three, sometimes think about the consequences, because in a heat of the moment or getting chained up, you could make a decision that could affect your entire life. So sometimes if you're triggered and somebody daring you or provoking you, sometimes just run. Just run as far from that person as you can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because, there are so many different scenarios. There are a million situations we could bring forward, whether it's a relationship situation, whether it's a workplace interaction, whether it's something with a family member. But what I want to touch on before we wrap things up, when there is a chorus line, when the chain-up situation now is getting support, when everybody's on the same page, and it's still against your consciousness, it's against your humanity. In your heart it's not really part of what you're about, but you're not part of a team, you're part of a whole group. How does one navigate that particular space? When everybody's going in one direction, the whole group take the chain up, and we're going in, but you're still kind of half and half now, you're not too sure. As a matter of fact, you're kind of sure that is not really what you're about, but you're moving with a team. Talk to me in that scenario.
Is to remember that feelings eventually end. So in that moment where you're feeling like if you're compelled to do it, you're feeling like you might get embarrassed, you're feeling like if people may not like you anymore, if you go with the team, that feeling you have ends. So if you could hold strain for that embarrass, that hurt, that fear, hold strain for a while, it will end. Also, remember that you are responsible for yourself. So even if a million people doing it, you can't say, well, they make me do it, because you will be held accountable for your action. So if everybody wants to go left and you want to go right, make sure and go right, because you are responsible for yourself.
And I think these are the conversations that parents and grandparents need to constantly have with their children and grandchildren. Because that's something I tell my son all the time, best if you're going in a direction by yourself and you look around and you're by yourself, but it's the right direction, you continue going that route, because so many times the chain-up act, yes, it could be individual. That individual act or somebody basically trigger you to do something, but so many times, especially in this modern time, again with social media and us living in that virtual space, so much of what we see is based on everybody doing it, so everybody just decide, well, hey, somebody decide, well, hey, I move in. I know you don't even realize, I think that's the worst thing, you don't even realize you're getting chained up. And you're just moving.
When you don't know yourself, and I think people should take the effort to know yourself. How do you get to know yourself?
How do you get to know yourself?
By being truthful, by telling the truth. If you go, listen, I always tell people, if you go at least 3 days without telling a lie, with saying exactly what you want, doing exactly what you want, of course, with respect, once it's not hurting someone else, you will actually get to know yourself. So if you're If somebody asks you a question, you want to say no, say no. I want to drop downtown, and you don't want them in a car, say no. They're invited to go out. You don't want to go, say no. Go for what you want, and then you will start to learn yourself. But even if you don't actually accomplish it, the fact that you're thinking about it and putting effort in, you will start to understand what you want. And then when you know what you want, you could be able to stand up. So even if everybody wants chicken and you want fish, you know, okay, I like this, I went through the process, and this is what I want.
Yeah, well said, well said. You know, it's such an easy concept, but so many find it hard to grasp because there is always this particular notion that you want people to like you, then you want people to accept you, you want to...
we can't control what people do, you know, Jason.
Yeah, and
always trying.
Yeah, and you can't...
trying to control people.
And no matter what, everybody still won't like you, even if you still try to pander to the crowd. So yeah, what you're saying is so true. You know, just being true to self.
Wasting time.
Yeah, being true to self. Any closing remarks before we wrap things up for this most important discussion?
Know yourself, tell the truth, stand for what you know is right for you, and life is not easy, but it's really not that hard. Have a great day.
Yes, you answer. Life is not easy, but it's really not that hard. That's your trademark. Well said. As always, I look forward to every Thursday for our discussions, and thanks again for coming on. All the best.
Yeah, man, Jason. Enjoy it. Everybody enjoy it.
Curtis William joins us next for the breakdown of today's Business Guardian. Stick around.